cut. I thought about posting it to the water cooler social media page, but I didn't want to inflict that image upon you all. But the fight has been rescheduled for May 18th, with two interesting clauses being inserted into that contract. Essentially, if anybody backs out again for whatever reason, they'll have to lose $10 million. So there's a $10 million fine for postponing the fight again, because this is like the second time it's been postponed. Both times, I will add, were because of an injury Tyson Fury has suffered. So the second clause added was a rematch clause. So whoever loses, if they want to, they can invoke a rematch and everybody makes more money. So the fact that both postponements has been because of Tyson Fury prompted Alexander Usyk's manager to say that Tyson Fury was scared of his client and that he was a coward. Now, Tyson Fury did not take kindly to that characterization. He said, "I've had 35 professional fights and I've been boxing for 18 years of my life. I've climbed off the canvas 10 times off the biggest punches in history to win. Never a coward, never backed down from any man in my life. And if any man calls my wife a B, I'll take his effing teeth out. Do you understand me?" Now, I don't know where the part about calling his wife a B comes from, because Alexander Usyk's manager's name is Kilmus, and he never said that. Kilmus went out of his way to, after Fury made that comment, to say, "I never called your wife a B," so don't know where that came from, but that's a pretty expected response from Fury. I mean, if you're a heavyweight champion, somebody calling you a coward doesn't sit well, but that's just the fight game, baby. You gotta always be knocking each other, always be doing what you can to add to the intrigue, get your name in the news, and talk trash whenever possible. But that said, this is the first heavyweight championship unification fight since Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson in 2002. So when this fight does happen, it'll be a big deal. It was supposed to happen next Saturday, which is why, if you saw the social media post before this live stream, that was kind of the headline for the week, what me and Levi were mostly supposed to talk about. And unfortunately, Levi was not able to make it tonight. Tyson Fury got his eye cut open, so no fight. And we're not going to spend too much more time talking about it, because I want to save the in-depth analysis for when the actual fight itself is about to happen. Now, on the note of analysis, Micah Parsons, Cowboys all-star or all-pro player, has a podcast, and he was giving his analysis about the Cowboys' exit in the playoffs a couple weeks back. And he said, "To go out like that at home was completely embarrassing and unacceptable. They're talking," and they here is in reference to Jerry Jones saying that they're going all in. But he said, "They're talking about we're going all in this year, and that's what I would hope for. I hope that we go all in, and I hope we go out and get the players we're missing, because we didn't do that this year." And in regards to the coaching in the game against Green Bay, Parsons said, "We were just outperformed, out-schemed." So a lot of people were taking those comments a certain type of way. He's been getting criticized for calling out his coach, saying that his coach didn't do well. Now, he went on in his podcast to give Mike McCarthy some big praise, but it's kind of like an insult or a compliment sandwich. You talk about how great Mike McCarthy is. You talk about how we were outperformed, out-schemed, how you thought that you should have been doing this certain play and moved to linebacker, but nobody ever told you to, so it wasn't your job to critique, but that you didn't think it made sense. And then you finish up by talking about how great Mike McCarthy is. It doesn't seem to me that's really how you feel, and a lot of people are interpreting it that way as well. So he's been catching a lot of flack, and I have to agree. Now, first off, his thing about the Cowboys need to go out and get the players we're missing because we didn't do that this year, that statement can apply to many different seasons of Cowboy football, but this year is not one of them. The Cowboys have 9 All-Pro players this year. They had 4 players make the first team All-Pro: CeeDee Lamb, Darren Bland, Zach Martin, not Cody's brother, and Brandon Aubrey. And 5 players make second team All-Pro, including Parsons himself, Dak Prescott, Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith, and Byron Enger. So the Cowboys didn't lose because of a lack of weapons. They lost just because they choked. And Micah Parsons himself wasn't exempt from that. He had a rough game against the Packers. Now, he said on his podcast, too, that he was mad people were questioning his commitment and that they were questioning his effort. And I didn't see anybody questioning his effort. They were questioning his results. I'm sure you tried. It just, whatever you were trying wasn't working. And those are 2 different criticisms. I mean, anybody that's played sports can tell you. There are some games you go out there and you try all the stuff that you usually do. You play your game, and for some reason the shots just aren't falling or your swing just not connecting. I never played football, so I can't really make a comparable analogy there, but you're giving the same amount of effort you always do. It's just not hitting like it usually does. And everybody just has those games. So, Micah Parsons is not alone in that. It just so happened that his game happened in one of the most important playoff games the Cowboys have had in a while, and it coincided with all of his other teammates having that same game. All choking really is having a bad game in a very inopportune moment. A lot of times, choking, the way it's used, means that, the pressure, it got to you and you just couldn't handle the bright lights and the atmosphere of the playoff. Sometimes, you can play badly, not because you couldn't handle the pressure, but because the other team just played so much. They played up to the standard. I don't know a good way to put it, but sometimes bad games happen. And if you're unfortunate enough to have your bad game line up with an important game, you'll get called a choker. Now, when it becomes a routine thing, and every time there's an important game, you also have a bad game, then I think it's valid, but I don't know. One game to me is not enough to label somebody a choker. Now, somebody who, in my opinion, that label might be able to be accurately stuck to, LeBron James was in the news again this week for once again hinting that he might be willing to run out of town when the going gets tough on his team. So last week, he tweeted an hourglass emoji with the hourglass sand in the bottom of the hourglass with the sand trickling down from the top as one of his umpteen subliminal tweets meant to scare his general manager into doing something in free agency. And then when he's asked about it, he acts like we're all crazy for reading into a tweet that clearly had some subliminal messaging and not even well-hidden subliminal messaging at that. When you tweet that the week before the trade deadline ends, the season before your free agency enters, so LeBron James' contract, he has a player option for next year, which means that he can either, if he loves being a Laker and loves being in Los Angeles, he can opt in the next season and not have to be a free agent this summer, or he can decline his player option and go under free agency this summer. And that has been the talk of the NBA world, has been, what will LeBron James do? Will he accept his player option or will he decline it? And that tweet added fuel to that fire, and that fuel was added even more when somebody asked him after the Lakers played the Knicks if he had decided what he was going to do, and he just said no and left it at that. And later on in that same press conference, he was asked, have you ever thought about playing for the Knicks? In which he said, yes, when I was a free agent in 2010, this was one of the places I looked at, so I have considered playing in New York before. That has led people going wild with speculation that LeBron might be going to the Knicks. Now, the Knicks are rumored to get every free agent, so I will believe it when I see it. I don't know if I'll ever see the Knicks get a top-tier free agent. That just seems like it would be too much to ask. But who knows? I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if LeBron did duck out on the Lakers. But I don't expect him to. At this point in his career, LeBron has been on 3 different teams, and he's left in free agency 4 different times. He's been criticized a lot for that. For him to do it one more time, every time he does it, it waters down his, I don't want to say specialness, but it adds fuel to his critics who say that when the going gets tough, LeBron gets going. Now, I mean, at this point, LeBron is such a big star that your opinion's pretty much already made up with him. If you're a LeBron critic, you're a LeBron critic. And if you're a LeBron fan, you're a LeBron fan. So, I mean, it's kind of like politics where LeBron's free agency decisions might impact that, like, very small sliver of undecided voters in the Jordan-LeBron debate. And outside of that, it won't matter much, but, I mean, it's frustrating to see somebody of his stature feel the need to constantly ring chase just because he's not good enough to lead his team to the championship on his own accord anymore. And if you look at LeBron is averaging 25, 7, and 7. AD is averaging 25 and 12. If you have 2 players doing that, then you should be a top team in your conference. But the Lakers right now are 9th in the Western Conference, are barely over 500, and are on the cusp of not even qualifying for the play-in game. So it goes to show, one, that stats are so inflated in this current league that you can put up 25, 7, and 7, and it means pretty much nothing. And I don't think LeBron will leave because he's in Hollywood. So despite the shortcomings on the basketball court, as far as business opportunities and branding, hanging out with the celebrities and stuff go, he's in the perfect spot for him. His son, who just suffered a major health scare a couple months back, goes to college right down the road at USC. If he wants to, he can hop over and watch his son play basketball. So, I mean, I'm sure he's only been in LA for 4 or 5 years now. So, I mean, his son Bryce is still in high school. Like, he has off the court non-basketball reasons to why it would make sense for him to stay in LA for at least another year. Now, if he were to leave LA, the only place it would make sense for him to go would be the Knicks. Because, I mean, as far as having the media presence and wanting to be the GOAT, like I said, I don't think this will happen. But if I'm LeBron and I'm leaving the Lakers, you go to the Knicks. Because that New York media culture is a juggernaut. And if you want to pass Jordan the GOAT debate, finding a way to win a championship in New York, a city that has been dying for an NBA championship since 1974. Or 1973. That's a heck of a way to do it. So I don't think LeBron's leaving. If he does leave, it'll just make him look even more chicken than he already is for not being able to stay down and be loyal to a team when the going gets hard. I mean, this whole LeBron to the Lakers thing, it's hard to say it's a failure because they did get a championship in 2020, but it's got to be a major disappointment. Outside of that one championship season, I don't know if they've ever finished in the top 5 of the Western Conference. And I don't think that's what LeBron signed up for when he went to LA, was to be a perennial outside the playoffs looking in team. They missed the playoffs this first season. They won the championship the next season. And that, regardless of your personal thoughts on whether that COVID championship was harder, easier, whatever, a lot of people detract from that and don't consider, it's hard to say you don't consider it a real championship, but it doesn't hold much weight in their eyes. And since then, I think they've made the playoffs every year, but there have been some first round outs. They made the Western Conference Finals last season, so I mean that was a big step up, but hasn't been great for LeBron and the Lakers. And for him to duck out, it would just make him seem like Galactus. If you know Marvel, Galactus is, I guess, a supervillain who goes to a planet, sucks it dry of his energy, and when he has sucked that planet dry of all of its resources, he then goes on to the next planet to destroy. So that would be LeBron. He goes to the Lakers. They trade away their entire young core in order to placate him. In return, he gets the one championship and a couple first-round outs, and then he leaves to go to the next championship. But that is that as far as LeBron goes. And one last thing to get into this week, I kind of touched on Micah Parsons and the NFL. The Cowboys have a lot of all-pro teams. The Pro Bowl was today, so we will be talking about that next week. Next week we will be doing an NFL, I'm not going to say exclusive because you never know what other news could pop up, but next week's podcast will pretty much be NFL exclusive stuff in favor or in honor of the Super Bowl. We will try to film next Saturday to give our predictions, and then tune in Sunday immediately after the game because we will have a live stream. We will be partnering with the Canton Ice House. So if anybody in Canton is listening, go down there, watch the game. Levi will be essentially DJing after the game. He will be on stage. We'll be setting it up, doing it a live stream together. It'll be a great time. And if you want to catch it, be sure to go on Facebook, YouTube, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, buy the merch, do anything you can to support the page. And that will be all for this episode. We will see you guys next week.